Did you know that, 94% of people experience sudden, unwanted, intrusive thoughts?
Yeah, it's pretty much everyone you pass on the street or sit next to on the subway.
Right. We're talking about incredibly vivid, totally unprompted images of doing something horrific, like uh, suddenly imagining pushing someone onto the train track.
Or swerving your car into oncoming traffic. It happens all the time.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, our mission is highly specific. We are unpacking the complex and honestly, sometimes totally paradoxical world of therapeutic journaling.
Specifically looking at how to create a journaling guide for Harm OCD.
Which is a really profound and intensely misunderstood subtype of obsessive-compulsive disorder, right?
Exactly. This is where a person becomes absolutely terrified that they are going to just snap and cause physical harm to someone else.
Usually the people they love the most, which is just heartbreaking.
It really is.
And for, that 94% of the population, those bizarre thoughts just disappear. They pop into the mind. The person thinks, well, that was weird, and they just move on with their day.
Right. It doesn't stick.
But for someone dealing with Harm OCD, those thoughts stick. They become this debilitating, terrifying loop. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Because we are always told that journaling is the ultimate mental health hack, right?
Oh, absolutely. The cultural advice is always just get your feelings out on paper.
Right. But our clinical guidelines flash a massive warning sign here. They say doing this for Harm OCD can actually be dangerous. Why is that?
Well, because unstructured venting, in this specific clinical context, it actually acts as a mental compulsion.
A compulsion? Wait, like washing your hands over and over.
Yes, exactly like that. But mental, it traps you.
Yeah.
So the entire goal of our deep dive today is to explore how you have to transition from writing to vent, which inadvertently feeds the disorder,
Okay.
to writing to confront, which is the actual mechanism for healing.
Writing to confront. I like that. And to really grasp why standard journaling fails so spectacularly here, we have to look under the hood at the exact mechanism of Harm OCD.
Yeah, we have to talk about cognitive distortion.
Right. It all comes down to a distortion called thought-action fusion, or TA.
TA is, it's essentially a type of magical thinking where your brain equates a thought with reality.
Like if I think it, it's real.
Exactly. People with OCD have an incredibly low tolerance for uncertainty. So when a violent image pops into their head, their brain assumes it wouldn't produce a terrifying image unless it represented a genuine, imminent threat.
And the clinical research breaks this down into two distinct variants that are just brutal to experience. First, you have moral TAF.
Which is the internalized belief that just having a thought of violence makes you a fundamentally evil person.
Right. It's the idea that thinking about something awful is morally equivalent to actually committing the act. Like you think about hurting a child, therefore you are a monster.
It's devastating. And then you have the second variant, which is likelihood TAF. This is the irrational conviction that merely having the intrusive thought exponentially increases the probability that you are going to physically lose control.
Like, you imagine your hand grabbing a kitchen knife, and likelihood TA tells you that because you imagined it, the odds of you actually doing it just skyrocketed.
Precisely. Which explains why these thoughts cause such intense, suffocating shame and guilt.
Yeah, psychologists use the term ego dystonic to describe this, right?
Yes, ego dystonic. It means these intrusive thoughts conflict entirely with your true character, your core values, and your desires.
You are terrified of these thoughts precisely because you are a good person who doesn't want to hurt anyone.
Exactly. But the OCD is like this parasite that demands absolute certainty.
It demands you prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that you aren't going to snap.
Right, and this need for total certainty is exactly where unstructured journaling becomes a massive trap.
Because you grab your notebook thinking, I'm engaging in a healthy coping exercise, but you're actually just using the journal to compulsively review your day?
You start writing things like, did I look at that knife too long? Did I stand too close to the edge of the platform?
You start confessing every single dark thought on the page. It's like you're trying to somehow build a legal defense file to prove to yourself you aren't a murderer.
Yeah. It mutates into a tool for mental checking and reassurance. You write and rewrite exhaustively, searching for a definitive answer that the OCD will never, ever let you find.
There's a brilliant metaphor clinicians use for this in our sources. They compare intrusive thoughts to a beehive.
Oh, I love this metaphor.
Right. If you just leave it alone, the bees will eventually fly away. But unstructured ruminative journaling, that is taking a stick and repeatedly poking the hive.
You're just agitating the swarm.
But wait, I have to push back here for a second. The standard Pennebaker expressive writing protocol You know, the famous one where you just free write your deepest feelings for 20
Sure,
minutes.
the classic expressive writing model.
Yeah, that shows massive biological benefits. I mean, it improves immune function, it lowers blood pressure. If that is bad here, what are we supposed to do?
Well, what's fascinating here is the vital clinical difference between self-reflection and rumination.
Okay, break that down for me.
Self-reflection is growth-oriented, and crucially, it is bounded. You explore a feeling, you gain an insight, and you stop.
You actually move on.
Right. Rumination, on the other hand, is an insidious, repetitive circular trap. You replay the distressing narrative over and over without ever restructuring your relationship to the thought.
You're just spinning your tires in the mud, digging the trench deeper.
Precisely. To break out of that mud, you need something called cognitive diffusion.
Cognitive diffusion.
Yes, you have to learn how to separate you, the observer, from the thought itself. And since traditional unstructured journaling is completely off the table for Harm OCD, treatment relies on the gold standard.
Which is imaginal exposure scripting.
Exactly.
This is a highly specialized form of ERP, or exposure and response prevention. Now, traditional ERP for something like, say, contamination OCD is pretty straightforward to visualize, right?
Yeah, very straightforward. You touch a dirty doorknob and you refuse to wash your hands. You sit with the anxiety until it fades.
Right, that is called in vivo, or real-life exposure. But with Harm OCD, you obviously cannot ethically ask a patient to practice driving into oncoming traffic.
No, of course not.
Or stabbing a loved one just to get over their fear.
You absolutely cannot. It's practically and ethically impossible. Which is why we turn to the imagination. We use therapeutic writing to access deeper metacognitive processes.
The history behind how this developed is incredible, by the way. Dr. Ida Gorbis, a pioneer in ERP scripting, looked closely at the experiences of Holocaust survivors.
Yes, her research is fascinating.
She found that survivors who kept daily diaries documenting their harrowing experiences while inside the concentration camps were significantly less likely to develop PTSD after liberation.
Compared to those who only did traditional talk therapy later on, yes.
Exactly. The daily, structured, unblinking confrontation with trauma on paper built profound emotional resilience.
It is a staggering testament to the power of facing a fear rather than avoiding it. But we have to be very clear about the contrasting goals here.
What do you mean?
Well, expressive writing, like the Pennebaker method you mentioned earlier, aims to reduce immediate distress.
Right, to make you feel better in the moment.
Imaginal exposure scripting, however, is designed to intentionally provoke and elevate your fight or flight response.
So, wait, what does this all mean? You are telling the listener to purposefully trigger a panic attack on a piece of paper.
Well, yes.
But how does intentionally imagining your worst, most violent fears not just make those thoughts come true? I feel like that is the immediate red flag anyone with Harm OCD is going to raise.
Oh, it's the most natural objection in the world. And it completely validates the terror driving the condition.
Yeah.
But we have to anchor ourselves to reality.
Which is...
Thoughts are not actions. Thinking about an obsession does not conjure it into existence.
Right, the magical thinking we talked about earlier.
Exactly. Imaginal exposure works through two core psychological mechanisms. First is habituation.
Habituation. So, getting used to it.
Basically, when you maintain a threat stimulus over a prolonged period without the feared consequence actually happening, your brain learns that it biologically cannot sustain peak panic indefinitely.
Oh, so the physiological alarm bell eventually just runs out of battery. You literally can't stay terrified forever.
Yes. The second mechanism is expectancy violation, or inhibitory learning.
Okay, that sounds technical. What does that mean?
The script forces your brain to generate a new competing neural pathway. You learn that your catastrophic prediction, like, if I think about harming my child, I will lose control and do it, is fundamentally flawed.
Because you're thinking about it, but you aren't doing it.
Exactly. You face the terror repeatedly, and eventually it just becomes boring text on a page. And boredom is the exact opposite of anxiety.
Boredom is the goal. Okay, so because the brain needs that absolute worst-case scenario to finally get bored of the fear, how do we actually put that on paper without softening it?
Yeah, we need to talk about the anatomy of building an effective exposure script.
Let's go through the steps.
Step 1. The foundation of the script is identifying your core fear. And you cannot flinch here. You have to go straight to the absolute worst case scenario.
So if your fear is pushing someone, you don't write about almost pushing them. You write about actually doing it.
You have to write about doing it. Step 2 is the tense. Clinical protocols insist on writing in the first person present tense.
Using phrases like I am and I feel.
Right. If you write, I was standing by the ledge, or I might stand by the ledge. You are creating psychological distance.
Oh, I see. Writing, I am standing by the ledge, strips away that distance and puts you right in the center of the perceived threat.
Step 3, you have to load the script with high sensory specificity. To fully activate the brain's fear network, you have to engage all 5 senses.
That makes perfect sense. It's the difference between reading a sterile police report and being immersed in a virtual reality simulation.
Exactly. Just saying, I poisoned the food probably doesn't trigger the physiological response we need.
Right. You have to detail the acrid smell of the bleach. You describe the blinding red and blue flashes of the ambulance sirens reflecting off the walls.
You even describe your own physiological panic in the script. The racing heart, the shallow breathing, the tight throat.
Wow. Okay. And step 4.
Step 4 is the hardest part of the anatomy, the ending. The script must culminate in tragedy or complete ambiguity, with absolutely zero reassurance.
Zero reassurance. So you write that you go to prison, that your family abandons you, that you face eternal damnation.
Yes, you do not add a sentence at the end saying, but I know I would never really do this.
No safety nets allowed. You are completely removing the reassurance compulsion. Can you give us a concrete, raw, clinical example to show exactly what this looks like in practice?
I can. This is an example from our sources of an imaginal exposure script for Harm OCD involving a fear of scissors.
Okay, brace yourselves.
Quote, I am sitting on the sofa with my sister. Suddenly, I grab the scissors from the desk and lunge them into my sister's right eye.
Oh my God, right into it.
Yeah, it doesn't hold back. It continues. My father grabs me and pries the scissors out of my hand, but the damage has already been done. My sister is blinded and unable to continue with her profession.
The details are so specific.
Yes. I am arrested and convicted of attempted murder and gross mutilation, which carries a sentence of 50 years in state prison. My family cuts all ties with me, and my friends desert me.
Total isolation.
Exactly. After 40 years, I am paroled but don't know a soul in the world. My dream of raising a family is no longer possible. I spend the rest of my life living with the fact that I destroyed my sister's art career.
Wow.
And the final sentence, when I die, my soul is sent off to eternal damnation in hell. End quote.
That is jarring to hear out loud. It goes all the way to the darkest possible ending. There is absolutely no silver lining there.
There can be. If we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to imagine reading that narrative over and over day after day.
Right.
The first few times, your anxiety is going to spike. Yeah. But by the 50th time, the 100th time,
the words just start to lose their power.
Exactly. The authority of the OCD degrades because your brain realizes, I keep imagining this horrific thing, but I'm still just sitting here on my couch. The thought didn't make it happen.
But there is a vital caveat here for people writing these scripts, which brings us to step 5. It's something called the MOMN technique.
Which stands for may or may not.
Right. Sometimes writing a definitive worst-case scenario backfires. The person believes the script literally, and it turns into a new depressive compulsion.
Yeah, they walk around acting as if the horrible thing has already happened.
So how do you fix that?
If you notice yourself acting depressed, as if your life is already over, you have to pivot. You lean into agonizing uncertainty instead of a definitive tragedy.
So what do you write instead?
You write, I may or may not lose control and hurt someone. There is absolutely no way to know for sure, and I will have to live the rest of my life with this total uncertainty.
Wait, let me pause here, because that honestly sounds like torture.
It is uncomfortable, yes.
If I'm acting depressed because I convince myself I'm actually going to prison, the fix is to tell myself I might hurt someone, I might not. Why does the brain prefer a guaranteed tragedy over uncertainty?
It all comes back to the intolerance of uncertainty that defines OCD. A guaranteed tragedy is devastating, but it's resolved. You know the outcome.
Oh, I see.
Uncertainty, however, requires constant vigilance. It feels like standing on the edge of a cliff blindfolded.
That is terrifying.
The MOMN technique forces you to sit with the absolute discomfort of not knowing, which is the ultimate exposure for an OCD brain. You have to learn that you can survive the feeling of not being sure.
That is profound, and it brings us to the physical execution of this. Because writing the script is really only phase 1, right?
Correct.
How do you actually interact with this terrifying journal entry you've just created? The clinical term for this next phase is flooding.
Yes. You have to loop the script.
Yeah.
You read it repeatedly, or better yet, record yourself reading it on your phone and listen to the audio on a loop.
And you can amplify the effectiveness immensely by combining the audio script with in vivo physical exposure.
This is where it gets really powerful.
This part completely blew my mind. You listen to the audio recording of your violent script while holding the actual object of your fear.
Right. Say it's a vegetable knife.
You hold it in the kitchen with your family members around while listening to the script.
You are layering the imaginal fear with the physical trigger to prove to your brain that you can tolerate the distress without acting out. It is the ultimate confrontation of the fear.
But we also have to address how the physical act of journaling itself can become a compulsion, right?
Yes, Harm OCD is very often accompanied by just right or perfectionism OCD.
The clinical guidelines describe patients who literally can't stop writing until their handwriting is aesthetically flawless.
Or until they achieve a specific, arbitrary feeling of emotional rightness.
Right. They'll spend hours rewriting a single entry, transforming a therapeutic exercise into an exhausting ritual.
To combat this, clinicians prescribe the messy journaling protocol.
Messy journaling.
Yes. You enforce the no eraser rule. You must use a pen. If you make a mistake, you cross it out only once with a single line and force yourself to keep going.
You can even have a friend or a child just scribble randomly on the first page of your brand new notebook to permanently break the perfection of the object before you even start.
That's a great tactic.
And I love the just right inversion technique.
Oh, yes.
When you feel that agonizing urge to rewrite a messy sentence, you write out a script that actively mocks the OCD. You write, "Yay, icky feeling. My handwriting looks terrible today. Bring it on."
The more it bothers me, the better I get at handling it. You are paradoxically leaning into the discomfort.
Which strips the obsession of its power over your behavior.
Exactly.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting and highly practical. We are telling you to write down in vivid first-person present tense that you want to commit a heinous crime.
Yep.
If I write this down and someone finds my notebook, or if I use a digital journaling app and their automated AI flags me for self-harm or violent threats, won't I get locked up?
This raises an urgent question about the ethics and mechanisms of modern mental health tools. These journals contain deeply ego-dystonic thoughts that, out of context, look exactly like horrific confessions.
Which is terrifying to think about.
Privacy isn't just a preference here. It is a strict clinical necessity.
We have to dig into why AI monitoring is uniquely dangerous for this specific condition. Because AI algorithms are trained to detect intent based on language patterns.
Right.
And because Harm OCD sufferers are deliberately writing scripts in the first person, like "I'm going to stab my sister," a well-meaning AI will parse that as a genuine, imminent threat.
And that is the worst-case scenario.
Oh, totally.
If an app flags your exposure script and automatically dispatches police or emergency services to your home, it entirely ruins the exposure therapy.
Not to mention the real-world consequences.
And worse, it validates the OCD's core fear. The brain says, see, even the authorities think you are a dangerous monster.
Oh, wow, that could cause catastrophic clinical setbacks.
Absolutely. You have to seek out platforms that guarantee a strictly private, judgment-free zone.
So if you are using digital tools, look for applications that offer end-to-end encryption, or E2E.
Yes, this ensures that even the app developers cannot read your entries.
You also want apps that promise zero telemetry, meaning they aren't tracking your behavior or running background sentiment analysis.
And definitely use secondary authentication, like Face ID, especially if you share a device with your family.
This intense need for safety and structure really underscores why doing this work alongside a licensed therapist is so highly recommended.
A therapist who understands ERP will establish a therapeutic contract with you. This establishes strict boundaries.
Like a 15-minute time limit on your writing sessions to prevent you from sliding back into endless rumination, right?
Exactly. They also help you build a safety plan. Because if you are flooding yourself with these terrifying scripts, you might experience an intense spike in distress that feels genuinely unmanageable.
So if your nervous system gets pushed too far, you need grounding protocols ready to go.
You can use somatosensory engagement, like the 5-4-3-2-1 sensory countdown.
That's where you force your brain back into the present moment by naming 5 things you can see, 4 you can hear, 3 you can touch, 2 you can smell, and 1 you can taste.
It forcefully anchors your physiology back to the present. Recognizing your limits and knowing when to reach out for professional help to safely navigate this isn't a failure.
It is wisdom.
It's the most important self-care skill you can develop.
So let's bring this all together. Harm OCD is a mechanism that makes us fear our own minds. Think of OCD like an octopus. Every obsession, every intrusive thought is a tentacle wrapping around you.
That's a great visual.
As we've learned, unstructured journaling just venting onto the page only feeds that octopus. It acts as a compulsion, a desperate search for certainty that you are a good person.
Which only makes the grip tighter.
To heal, you have to use structured imaginal exposure scripting. You write out those absolute worst-case scenarios in vivid, present-tense detail.
You sit with the intense anxiety it provokes without seeking reassurance.
Until your brain's alarm system habituates to the fear and finally powers down. By writing these scripts and facing the terror head-on, you systematically shrink that octopus until its tentacles simply have no power to hold you anymore.
That's exactly right.
And to you listening, please remember, having dark, intrusive thoughts does not mean you are a bad person. It just means you have a highly creative brain that occasionally misfires its own alarm system.
And that actually leaves us with a fascinating, provocative thought to consider.
What's that?
Well, if our brains are capable of vividly simulating our darkest, most terrifying fears with such incredible sensory detail in a misguided attempt to protect us,
Yeah.
what might happen if we intentionally repurpose that exact same intense imaginative machinery?
Oh, wow.
What if we use that creative power to vividly script, in the present tense, our most profound, unbridled successes?
It makes you wonder. We spend so much energy trying to fix the broken parts of our minds, looking for the fractures. But maybe the machinery isn't broken at all. Maybe it's just incredibly powerful. And once you learn how to harness it, it might just change everything.